Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the desk. Moss One here. Counterfeit there. More like there. Welcome back to the desk, Counterfeit, and we're here for the final game of the LJL Super Week. This is game number 16. And what has been your thought currently throughout all of Super Week? What's been your thought on the level of play from some of the teams?
Well, I mean, I think this is Super Week really gives a chance for the teams to really show everything that been developing so far.
Yeah.
I mean, for Rascal Jester, they've shown that they're willing to come out of Super Week to go into the final week with a ton of momentum. I think the opportunity that Super Week's giving to both AXIZ and to SoftBank's gaming in our game coming up is to have a very clear idea of whether or not they're going to actually make top six themselves and actually make it to the playoff stages at all.
Yeah, I mean, Rascal Jester were one of the few teams to actually go 4-0. They were undefeated through it all. So, I mean, that's a huge thing for them to say. Obviously, picking up that win over Detonation Focus Me was the only loss that Detonation Focus Me actually had all of Super Week. So, there was a lot of things coming in. Though, for the Hawks, they haven't got a win yet in Super Week. Neither have AXIZ. So this is literally for both teams their last chance, their last shot at this. The Hawks would love this win because they're currently sitting at the very bottom of the standings. They're in 8th place, all on their lonesome. A win here would at least put them tying with AXIZ and Burning Core. Obviously, AXIZ on the other side would love the win because then they are well and truly in 6th place. They move the Burning Core down to 7th, and the Hawks will be 2 wins away. So that's going to be even harder for them to do it. So this might look like a very weird game, but arguably it's one of the most important games of Super Week because it's going to decide the factor of who the bottom teams are playing coming into Week 7, which is the final day.
Yeah, we have to look all the way back to the beginning, back
Mm.
to week 1 to actually find when these two played against each other before. And in that case, as much as I feel kind of a little bit bad for going up to Apperman in the top lane, that was a big difference for them there as well. The gangplank came out for Apperman, got dominated by AXIZ's top laner Inno's Gragas, who was able to pretty much carry a large part of that game just through the top lane.
But this game also, their first game, does have a very special place in my heart because this is where Megumin got to showcase off his Zed, which was a huge carry potential over in the LJL scouting grounds. He did absolutely destructive things and really showed out why he had been at one point a Zed one trick in the mid lane, climbing all the way up to high elo, but then turning on a dime and how has started to expand their champion pool and really showing that, no, I can play things like an Azir. I can do things like a Syndra. We're going to have to see more from them. Obviously, as the games have gone on, they've been having some issues translating that into wins. It's been a whole team problem and not just Megumin himself. But I wonder if we'll see a rematch of this Zed and the Yone in the mid lane. I doubt it. That was a week 1 kind of special flavor thing coming out. We'll have to wait and see. Counterfeit, who are you picking for this final game of Super Week?
It's tough. I think a lot of this is going to depend on the Hawks. I mean, the last game, I was hoping we would see a much more even game. I think coming out of that one, AXIZ, the higher up last time that they played, it was a pretty dominating win for AXIZ. I think on balance, based on what we've seen so far today, at least, I think I'm going to give the edge to AXIZ here.
Myself, Nymera, and Initialize all over on our prediction sheet, which if you ladies and gentlemen are interested now, you can get involved in predictions as well for playoffs. We'll be doing 2 separate things for it. So playoffs are definitely a time where you can get involved and get in the standings. We all agree with you, Counterfeit. We have all predicted AXIZ to win. However, if you then look at that same sheet, multiple other people are going for the Hawks. So we're rather split. The experts, meaning Initialize and Nymera and myself, all agree with you, but our server is more mixed. So we'll have to see which one of the two is correct as we get in to this pick and ban phase.
All right, we'll just have to see. Is it going to be hard or is it going to be hard raw data that will win out the day? So the Hawks, they're over on the blue side once again, as we do see early bans out of Felius. And for AXIZ, they're taking away Rel from Corporal.
Let's run down these team comps, Counterfeit, for our final matchup, if you wouldn't mind doing the Hawks.
All right, so we've seen them play before. Apamen, Tassel, Dasher in the mid lane, who did go even with Mega Man last time they played. Zenit
Really
and
did.
Corporal in the bot lane.
Yeah, for AXIZ, we've got Inno in the top lane, Hoglet and Megamin, my star mid laner from the scouting grounds. We've got Honey in the bot lane, who has been that anchor, and Nemo for the support role. More bans have come out. We are seeing Dash's Syndra be banned out. And then we've got 2 target jungle bans, specifically onto Hoglet, that Udyr and Talia going away from him.
Well, I was wondering if this will be the case, because Hoglet, last time they played, the only time I think they played on Talia, that I could find at least, and they ended up nearly 4k ahead of Tussle by the end of the game with 13 assists. It was absolutely crazy. I should have mentioned this before, because that was actually, I think, the biggest gap between 2 players when they played before, that 4k advantage in the jungle.
Again, the Hawks really prioritize this. Seraphine in the mid lane, most likely. It will be interesting to see if it will be Corporal or picking up this time, but the Hawks really like playing Seraphine at the moment, and maybe because it's on 11.3 and Moonstone hasn't been changed, they're just like, well, if people want to let us keep doing this, we'll just keep playing the really powerful champion. And she was seen as one of the most powerful champions in the LJL, and just not that, in Summoner's Rift during this patch. Response has been made. Thresh and Lilia coming out for the side of AXIZ.
Yeah, we saw Lilia come out for the first time this season last week against Burning Core for Hoglet. It did okay. So, remains to be seen if Hoglet can make just as big an impact as... There we go, Tussle, you're on the Skarner this time, not letting it be picked away by the other team. I'm expecting much bigger things from them in this game, as we also have the center locked in as well for Zenit.
I think that's a mistake from the side of AXIZ. I would have loved to have seen the Skarner be picked away, especially when the Hawks have first pick locked in that Seraphine. You know they're going to have to index, or if they have to completely change their draft because you picked the Skarner, it means things are going completely different. But we're seeing our first Jace now in the LJL for AXIZ, and that's going to be Honey playing it, the hyper of hyper carries of the LJL, the man that will put a team on his shoulders if they want him to, and they let him. And that's the champion that everyone's been talking about that should be played. They just haven't gotten around to it. Victor and Silas have been banned out from both mid-nailers, though.
Yeah, I mean, Victor, as we mentioned before in the previous game for Dasher, incredibly strong pick for them. As Silas, the lesson has been learned from the last time round. Not going to be allowed through here. Of course, Mega Man has been on the Silas against Sengoku Gaming and absolutely annihilated them. So it's not just the last game. It is research. It is making sure you do not give across games by giving away these picks.
Yeah, and he really showed off what he can do on that Silas. He's only had 3 wins, but it was with a Silas, with a Zed, and it was also with an Azir. So let's see which one he'll pick. He can't do that. Ooh, the Yone are banned by the Hawks, going, hey, Dash is not going to play this, but we're going to make sure we take it away because Megumin has been shown to play these assassins, and I hope in the future we can see more from this rookie's a pool of champions, because if they're an assassin and we get back to a meta, he might be the player to watch. But as we see, going towards this Gnar.
And we've seen how much damage this Gnar can do. For Apamen, there's another big question. Do they sit back? Do they take themselves another passive pickup in the top lane? That all never got to make a big impact against Gnar before. But that gangplank is left open. It's been taken. Apamen is picking up the gauntlet.
No, this is why everyone keeps banning it in second rotation. They're like, just don't give Apamen the gangplank, it'll be worse. Maybe giving Dasher the Victor was the better play, because we've seen what this man can do. Apaman, it's Apamen at this point, because there's multiple of them. Those barrels will do so much damage. And Corporal is going to be on the Tom Kench. That means we've got a fasting center, meaning we're going to see Dasher play this Seraphine every single time he's allowed to get it. They have a front-to-back comp which is going to be out to output so much damage, and they've got the Skarner, which has been such a priority pick for a lot of these teams. We're going to be seeing the Azir coming out for Megaman, so that's a high priority champion for him, and that's a champion he's won on. So the side of AXIZ, they've got some reliability, they know what they're doing, and they've got the hyper carry. Wow, that's a lot to take in for us.
Yeah, I mean, Honey, we didn't know exactly what we were gonna get coming into this one because they've only been on single picks a lot of the time. I'm not even sure if they've played the Jinx here so far this season. But you mentioned the Azir did get seen before against Rascal's Jester and did pretty well there. So it may not be a Zed, but we still got the possibility of seeing those big plays.
Yeah, this is the first time I believe. Oh god, I'm rather dark now. I didn't realize. I'm like, why am I so dark? I guess that's just my camera deciding to be dark for the moment, even though it's very bright out. Anyway, whatever. I've been plunged into darkness. This is the first time we are seeing the Jinx coming out for Honey. We haven't seen it before. I think we saw it once before, way back in 2020 when he was playing as a part of as a part of the Hawks himself. So he has switched over to AXIZ, and the funny thing here is Corporal, who was on AXIZ originally, has now switched over to the Hawks. So we're seeing a mirror match of these two these two players who switched teams, and which one was the correct move? Should Honey have stayed on the Hawks, or should have Corporal stayed with AXIZ? I guess we'll have to find out.
As you said, this is a huge game for both of our teams here. Only the top 6 teams even get to go to playoffs at all. And this is very close to being a decisive match for them. I think, for the Hawks, they've got to recover from their last game against the Jesters, who honestly beat them pretty convincingly. I think it was nearly 15k ahead by the time it was all said and done at just short of 27 minutes. This game is going to have to be a whole lot different for the Hawks if they're going to win.
This game has to be very different, and honestly, for the side of AXIZ, they haven't really drafted a composition that wants this game to be over and done with super quickly. So actually, the Hawks might get that opportunity. They might be able to scale up, and that's great. You're playing Gangplank, you're playing Senna, you're playing Seraphine. You want the game to go for a while, especially as, let's be real, we're both assuming here this is fasting Senna. Is that still the correct thing to do on Senna at the moment? Fasting Senna has come way back into the meta, the item build. It took a while for the professionals to figure it out, but once they did, oh my, Senna has come back with absolute vengeance and does absolute absurd amount of damage. From the opposite side, for AXIZ, they have got options. Obviously, they've got this Gnar, which has been seen as such a high priority pick at the moment. They're facing off against a Gangplank, which is a pretty skill-based matchup from a lot of sides. I know if you're maybe a Gangplank main, you're more familiar with going, now Gangplank favored. And if you're a Gnar main, you're like, Gnar favored, because you just pop the barrel. So it's pretty 50-50. I am interested to see how this Lilia gets on versus the Skarner, though, in the jungle matchup.
Yeah, as I said before, Tussle and Hoglet, these two, they had the huge difference between them last time they played. And also Tussle, in our last game today, didn't manage to get really too much of anything done. Ended up with, I think, 5 deaths and only 2 assists on the Graves. So I'm really glad to see them back on Skarner. I think for the Hawks, I'm liking what we're seeing here. We've got the Gangplank for Apham, we've got Skarner for Tussle. When the top and jungle of your team are the ones which are most suspect at times, getting them back onto their comfort picks feels incredibly important.
It really is important. It's going to be really adaptable. We're going to have to see how this game goes on. We are still waiting for the teams to get in. So while we wait, Counterfeit, how have you been enjoying? I've been loving Super Week so far. How have you been enjoying these Super Week as we are actually getting on the Rift? Oh, you just have to we're vaguely getting there.
Well, there was a couple of things before we actually get into the game itself, because there's some important numbers which are picked up from Super Week and from the rest of the season. Is an important thing for AXIZ here in terms of an overall sort of stylistic thing. Is that AXIZ, they are very good at, if they've got a lead, we're talking about the whole sort of 15-minute break point before. If AXIZ have a lead at 15 minutes, they are so much better than the Hawks are at turning that into a win. But, and this is an important caveat here, which wasn't present in the previous game, AXIZ are actually rarely ahead at 15 minutes. So when they get the lead, they can turn it into a win. But they haven't been able to get those leads. And for the Hawks, they normally farm out these early games extremely well. And if there's no big explosive fights, they'll stay ahead on CS and farming because they're so good at that.
So it's going to come down to the fundamentals and who's able to take an inch and go a mile with it. Both these teams are rarely in the commanding spot. They're half decent at the early to mid game, but they're not really good at turning it on a dime when they get that opportunity. And this full fan out with assisting the jungler makes total sense, as neither of these teams are particularly all about fighting early on. They want to just farm up, and I imagine Counterfeit, we're probably going to have a bit of a lull state for the first 15 minutes of this game, because I can just see how these two teams play out. They're great at doing the farming and fundamentals, but they don't really like engaging, just like you said.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can still see some fun stuff down at the bottom sides, particularly if Honey manages to get that kill, get that sort of semi-reset off to chase down. And we can see, if it's talking about an even game, then certainly our good friend Blitzcrank is very much in favor of that 50% on either side. That's impressive. I think it's speaking to how well both these teams navigated the draft.
Absolutely. I think if you're getting a 50-50 draw, whoa. Does that mean AXIZ are just gonna win this game at some point? Blitzcrank sign, you can't be giving us spoilers like that. Oh.
Okay, so apparently what's gonna happen is what we thought, which is that after a certain point, we're gonna see AXIZ apparently spiral out of control. If they do get that lead around 50 minutes or so, and presumably, according to the spoilers we've just seen, they will roll over the Hawks in a similar fashion that the Rascals did before.
Make it clear for the ladies and gentlemen out there, we do not have control over those graphics. We did not put those graphics out there, the LJLOU. That is not our producer Patrick putting that there. That is the official stream that put that on broadcast, and then very quickly we're like, oh god, no, that's not what we're meant to be showing. We'll have to see how this game goes, and if AXIZ are able to do that, but I'm going to be very impressed if they're able to get to a 99% game and they haven't actually won it already.
Yes, I mean, looking at the graphs there, the big call out was for AXIZ around 20 to 25 minutes, where they were going to be the most powerful based on their composition. So we'll keep an eye out for that. You know, the 15-minute, the 25-minute breakpoints, see where we are. I think for the Hawks, if they can avoid going down this incredible ride of destruction at that point, if it's still a roughly even game, I think they're pretty happy.
Yeah, and I think as it stands currently, these two teams are just going to be looking. We are getting fasting center as 22 farm is currently sitting on that Tahm Kench, and we've seen Corporal do this before, and he's able to help carry games. They've got obviously the emergency service of either get in or get out, depending on what needs to happen for these two teams. And Hoglet is just currently relaxing on this Leah after doing almost a full clear. Gromp is still up, but Gromp is one of the worst camps for Leah to take care of because she's all about multiple units getting hurt at the same time, not single units. So sometimes Gromp even gets left alone on some rotations.
Yeah, so far the CS is staying pretty even between the two. Dasher, of course, we saw do some pretty nice stuff there as they're going to be brawling with Mega Man. We see both mid laners expending a lot of resources on trading it with each other. Because Mega Man came in with a corrupting potion, has got the biscuit. In fact, both of them have got consumables on the side, but they've both as well got TP to get back into lane once they've decided trading is done.
Keep trading, and then they're eventually going to realize, so we basically are doing what one another is also doing. Yeah, we must also match one another and go back to base. It's like okay. Just mid laners like to fight. It's almost like the top lane action. Top lane is an island, right? Mid lane is just a fiesta, and what's bot lane? Holding hands, I guess. Just want to come out and play. That's how I see it sometimes, and that's my solo queue experience at least.
I think it's a reasonable assertion. I mean, looking around and seeing how things have gone in these first 5 minutes, there's nothing crazy outstanding here. We can see that the CS and top lane is mostly going to end up resetting to be fairly similar. Dasher, though, as much as we've been talking about these mid laners trading heavily with one another, Dasher, I think, has got a significant CS advantage for when they TP back into lane.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that. And with that TP advantage, we know that Dasher has not only done this to one player, but he did this in the previous game they just played. Recap had such a difficult time in that early game farming, but when it came to the mid to late game, yeah, you prevented whomever in the mid lane from getting a bunch of farm. Recap in that one, and current hook, but it's onto Corporal, so
Corporal's one beefy boy as Zenit will be able to escape out. Of course, we call back to our previous game where Tussle was visiting the bottom lane a lot and not getting anything for it on that Graves. This time round, it looks like Hoglet's determined to not let that happen as we've got 4 members of AXIZ all over this first Drake.
First Drake's a really strong objective. It's Cloud Drake, so it doesn't really matter, but it's incredibly important to try and secure them. There is an encore there with Dasher, but ooh, are they gonna go?
Tesla across the wall doesn't get hold of the Drake, but it looks like it's going to be a fight anyway. Hoglet gets pulled away by a beautiful lantern as Mega Man will use the Emperor's Divide to cut off any further pursuit.
That could have been real awkward, but thankfully the Nemo is a Nemo rather. There we go. I can hear Initial Eyes just looking at me with a stern look, going, "No, that's not how you say his name. Do it correctly, mate. You can do this." And I'm like, "I'm sorry." Beautiful lantern out there, allowing Hoglet to escape out, and he also secured the dragon. So minor tussle happening, but Tussle wasn't able to get anything there.
Well, speaking of tussles, Adman has got the Sheeny. Look how much damage they're doing to this Gnar with every one of those parlay shots, taking out a good chunk. I mean, it looks like they're going to try and trade back now because they know that they've got to get something done. When they go to the Mega now, of course, they'll be tougher to do that too. As we've got Dasher up towards the top side with Tussle, maybe we get to see some shenanigans. The ward is there to prevent any kind of big multi-person gank.
He's just been seen on that ward, so Tussle is going to be like, well, I can do this, I can do that. A big point of also why Inno actually decided to bounce off is because Mega Man was pinging and going, hey, my mid laner, Dasher, is missing. We don't know where he is at the moment. Don't go too up, don't go far up. So even when Inno had the Mega and had an opportunity to go on to Apperman and maybe even find the kill, because Mega Nard really does give you a huge boost in power, he just wasn't able to do it. It was safer for him to just back off, get the poke that he was able to do, and then reset and try and keep farming up. Even with Mega dropping off, he's back to full health and he hasn't had to go back. So, Inno, very happy with how the game state's currently going, but AXIZ are going to be able to secure a free Rift Herald as they lose some turret plates down in bot lane.
Yeah, they've brought their bottom lane up to the Herald. I mean, talk about commitment for objectives from AXIZ here. They've managed to make sure they've got nearly their whole team on the Drake, nearly the whole team on the Herald as well. They will give up a lot of ground in this bottom lane to do so. So that's going to be, I think, one or maybe even two plates gone by the time this is all said and done in exchange for the Herald.
One of those plates was incredibly low, but they were able to get that second one. And that's really good for both Zenit and Corporal. Obviously, Zenit is just on this fasting center, just wants to clear waves as quick as possible and get them set up so Corporal can do it. So then Zenit's able to farm the wave as effectively through the souls. That's a lot of gold as well. Each turret plate, remember, Counterfeit is 160 gold. That going over, Zenit's able to also get the procs on the sickle. It's just pure real estate value, and I don't actually think that was a great trade by AXIZ's bot lane. I think that was a negative trade. Even though Honey is going to try and do the best he can with farming, he's actually tying with Corporal at the moment. That's not where Honey wants to be. He wants to be ahead. He wants to have the kind of CS that Dasher has, but because he's given up so much in this early game, it's actually put him a little bit further behind.
Yeah, so I don't know if AXIZ were anticipating that Herald will be contested, so they needed to have 4 members up there, but it's a decision that was made, and ultimately, the Hawks are ahead in gold right now. CS advantage in the mid lane pretty significantly. Top lane is even jungle, ever so slightly in AXIZ's favor. The bottom lane, getting that turret placing as well, helps boost up the economy. The Herald, as of yet, on Hoglet, hasn't been deployed.
It's not been, and he's just going to be looking for an opportunistic moment. They are getting around on this bot lane. He did run over a ward, so the whole bot lane of AXIZ just has to accept that they're losing their turret, and they can't do anything, because if they go too near it, Tussle will come out.
Yeah, it's almost like for the Hawks here, they've got themselves a Herald. There's the catch. Never will immediately get deleted. We do have Corporal taking the tower aggro, I believe. Honey being chased out under the tower, exactly as you said. It's a good kill. The sleep onto Corporal doesn't do anything at all. Hoglet now in trouble with Dasher. There's the catch. There is going to be another kill in here for the Hawks. 3-0. Mega Man chased under the tower, deleted. Tussle grabs one for themselves. My God, this is a different Hawks team.
I mean, different Hawks team. It also does help that multiple members of AXIZ decided to go at the fight 1v1v1v1. We'll see this where you have Nemo at the very front of this. It sees Tussle, goes for a hook in the wrong direction, gets absolutely deleted, and Zenit gets first blood. That's great. Now Honey is completely alone, and this was what I was saying earlier when I was doing the analysis, where it's like, well, there's no point in you going at this. You know the Skarn is there. Hoglet's so far up and is almost getting asked to get it. Brilliant play there by Zenit, honestly. He allowed that to happen. And the fact that Megamin went at this is just asking for trouble from the side of AXIZ. He was so far up and he had just seen 3 members of his team die. What are you going to accomplish in a 1v3, 1v4, which is what it actually was, scenario? Sadly, not a lot. And it was actually death was on the table. His death was on the table. Huge play by the Hawks, and this is momentum well and truly in their favor. And what's brilliant about that as well, to end Counterfeit, every single member that participated got a kill.
Yeah, I mean, that has boosted up the economy of the Hawks dramatically, as we said. Both of these teams vying for those top 6 spots, as Hoglet will get caught, impaled, brought back into tower range as well, takes a free shot, and they drop to Appleman. The Heralds will go charging in as Inno tries to buy time. Megamin in from the side of the fight as Dasher could be in a little bit of peril here. Uses the stasis to stay alive as Inno gets stunned up. Slammed into the wall repeatedly as Dasher, but they still survive. Megamin starts to regret their move as they will fall as well. The Rocket gets one back for AXIZ, their first kill of the game, but it's still massively in the Hawks' favor.
As I mentioned earlier, will try as he absolute might to try and find any opportunity to assist the members of his team. He's able to still pick up a kill. The first kill over for AXIZ, but it was sadly in exchange for 2 members of his team. Inno in this top lane who has got an assist, and now Megamin who tried his absolute best to protect his top laner, but now I think the members of Hawks are getting engaged on.
Yeah. Of course, there is enough crowd control from them to almost guarantee the kill. Corporal gonna get slept up and held in place. I have to think this one is gonna be no good. Corporal, though.
TP coming in.
Yeah, TP from the back of the fight. Honey going down very low already, and that means that we can turn the fight immediately. AXIZ, they thought they were the ones making the plays, but instead they're having the plays made onto them. The Encore is ready to go across the wall if needed, but Nemo is already so low. Dasher grabs himself another kill. And for dessert, monsieur, we shall have ourselves a Mountain Drake.
Monsieur, I thank you for the... no, I can't keep going with the accent. I just realized halfway through that I have an awful accent, and I will not continue that, both to prevent insulting people and also just my own... pride, I guess. But that was a beautiful play by the members of the Hawks again, returning the engage that was coming from AXIZ. They sadly missed that the sleepy time from Hoglet coming out, only landing on 1 member. It was on Corporal, and then he's able to just walk away. The teleport coming in from Apperman, not even using the gangplank ult for the beginning of this fight because he didn't need it. Everything is just coming up Hawks, and this doesn't look like the same Hawks we had seen previously.
No, I mean, they're so much more comfortable in what they're doing. They're the ones making the play. Come up to 15 minutes time. This is real trouble for AXIZ, as we said. If they don't have the lead at 15 minutes, their success rate drops dramatically. And that seems to be very much not the case here. Getting up close to 5k in advantage. And it's the Hawks who take the second Herald, rather than AXIZ building on their snowball with it.
A little bit further behind schedule is Zenit on those souls. He has got up to 60 souls in 15 minutes, which isn't bad. I'm not going to say that. It's just the fact that they haven't gone as far as I would have liked them to see. As it stands currently, the members of the Hawks are well and truly in power. They have all of the objectives. Well, they now control the objectives. Oh,
there we go. That's the ult dropping down. Hoglet gets deleted and the impale. This is something we haven't even talked about, of course, compositionally from the Hawks. Is we've got crowd control in spades. They were catching the individual members you pointed out before, and their team's so well set up to do that.
They really are, and that's just it. They just keep pushing and punishing and going faster and further and more, and they're pushing the aggression. And this is something that we have seen from the Hawks, normally on the receiving end of, as well as AXIZ. When one of these teams at the moment, when any of them really in the LJL find a bit of momentum, they try and push it to the absolute limit. Though we have those other games where there's only a little bit of an advantage in it, and we see those slower games. It's really interesting to see that players and teams in the LJL so far, even at the end of Super Week, and this being our final game, they're still looking for fights. They're still looking to try and find something around them. But as it is, for this game, right here, right now, there is a 4K gold lead for the there's a 6K gold lead, rather, for the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks at the moment. They are at the bottom of the standings. They're ahead, but we've seen them be ahead before, and they've lost games. We need to see them keep playing this game out, and if they close it, we want to see a clean close, because that could definitely build up the hopes for each of these players on the Hawks coming into the 7th and final week.
If you're a fan of the AXIZ squad, what you're hoping for, I think, is that, I think the biggest problem here is Megaman in the mid lane. We've got a relatively even squaring between Zenit and Honey, the two bot laners. But between the two mid laners, we've got a CS discrepancy. We've got no kills and only 1 assist for the Azir. They are really far behind Dasher, and they're so weak at this point, they're not going to be able to get those kind of kills that we love to see from the Azirs, the turnaround plays that AXIZ need.
And as we wait, because we will have to wait for that Counterfeit, we're going to have to wait for the next big team fight, and that's going to be happening in 1 minute 20. And I wonder if the similar question to what you were saying in our last game with the Jesters, is this a spot now where if you're AXIZ, if you were the Hawks if you were the Hawks in that last game, do you just let them get this dragon? Do you just give it over to them and wait until you actually have a spot where you think maybe you can find a pick, maybe there's an option into this fight?
I mean, that's got to be tempting to just not take the fights. Tussle may have stepped too far forward there. They're going to get caught up and combo crowd controlled. So they die. It is 50 seconds till this next Drake comes up on this Ocean Rift map. So it's not as big of a problem as it could be. But an overstep there from Tussle allows AXIZ to get one of these very few precious kills that they've gotten so far.
And I will come back. 25 seconds on this Ocean Dragon. This is going to be close to one of the final moments that AXIZ will have. Reason I'm saying this is because the more this screw gets tightened, the further that the Hawks will keep going ahead. If they get this Ocean Dragon, they're going to also be looking to get this Baron, as they are well and truly getting further and further ahead as this game goes on, because this Senna is only going to become more and more of a thorn in AXIZ's side.
I mean, yeah, it's just going to get a bigger and bigger thorn. Right now, currently one of the strongest members of the team, but something we haven't talked about a ton as well, because I think our expectations were pretty low coming into this game based on last time these two teams fought. Appaman.
Yeah,
Appaman on this gangplank. What a redemption for them. Last time in the several games before, they have been a player who's been really allowing these top lane leads to get out of control. This time, they are the strongest performing player on the team. And, where are they? They're not even gotten a kill so far.
Them here, because Appaman in general has been having a pretty weak showing in the LJL. This was a player that was having some of the best results in the LJL. They were always putting up top of the standings table for when any and all stats that you could kind of measure players on. He was always near the top. He was almost always top 3 in everything that you'd want to be at least top 3 on. He wasn't giving over first blood a lot, so that's something that you wouldn't want to be number 1 in. But normally that supports anyway, so it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, Appaman's having a stellar game. We just saw that mythic come in for him, and that's going to be the Immortal Shield bow out. He does the exact same thing as Ezreal's do. You go for the Essence Reaver because it really enables the champion, and then you go for your mythic second. All mythics have come out except for Nema, which it's going to take a while for this Thresh to get it. I imagine we're going to see an Locket of Iron Solaris coming from him, but how many more items he gets will be more dependent on how many how long this game goes. Chem Tank Tahm Kench seems to be the standard meta, and it makes total sense because, hey, if you need to be the lifeguard and save your teammate, you want to be running at your enemy really fast so you can protect your team. And if not, you can just wander around the map and be really fast and get your tongue on people and lick them up. Lick a tongue. Good Pokemon. I like Lick a Tongue.
I
Yeah.
do as well. In fact, probably
When are we getting the Lick a Tongue skin for Tahm
I
Kench?
can only hope that one day, that glorious day comes. Maybe Corporal will help hasten that day, as they've certainly unbenched themselves in this game pretty well. I mean, we've got such a great, we praise Appaman for doing well. We've got a strong performance from Zenit as well. As there is the Emperor's Divide. There's the combo crowd control. This is AXIZ's combo play. We have got reinforcements coming. Corporal, the frog that could, will give the hug, give the lick. But it's going to be taken down Honey. As there's the catch again, the turnaround play, double kill for Dasher. And of course, all of that taking place inside of the cannon barrage. Hoglet is fleeing the scene, hoping to get away from the Tahm Kench. Will be able to, but what they're giving over in exchange is access to the Baron.
It's huge, and I'm so fortunate that my point came up right after it just as before it happened. So much was happening from the side of AXIZ. They were trying to find a way into this. They got the pick that they wanted onto Dasher, who had no HP. He brings down that smite, but somehow Tussle is able to get it, even though Spellbook had given Dasher smite. Doesn't matter. Let's come into this replay, and the hero play from Corporal, getting Dasher out on such low, but also shields and heals from Seraphine. It's unreal. Brilliant knockback. It is unfortunate that Honey didn't get the stun with the Jinx traps there, but look at this. Corporal immediately eats up Dasher and is just like, no, you're not doing this. I'm on the front line now. The center shield also comes out, hugely important to protect them. And then at this point, they're just playing cleanup duty. This was so well played by all members of the Hawks. They immediately collapsed on Dasher. They were like, no, we need to be hero duty. I've already got one person inside my mouth is Corporal going. I've got Zenit here with me. And now we're going to unlock and say, no, Dasher, you're not dying. Protect the president. Well, went successfully. I can think it's safe to say. Dasher didn't die. They got the Baron, and they're going to be looking at this Ocean Drake in a minute.
All right, so let's talk about as we're coming close to the next Drake, which will of course put the Hawks close to securing Soul for themselves. From AXIZ's side of things, we've seen that they can grab a member in a similar fashion to the Hawks and delete them. But I'm wondering, how do you do that when you've got, we've got the Senna, you've got the Tahm Kench, both able to reach out from long range. We've got the Cannon Barrage as well. How do you make a pick onto the Hawks when more than half of their team can pretty much join in any fight, pretty much at this point, anywhere on the map?
Yeah, because Appaman is playing this Gangplank specifically, it's going to be even harder because he's in split push mode, so you're never going to get Appaman unless they really feel like Appaman needs to be with them, especially because, well, Appaman can just ult if they're like, hey Appaman, can you ult this wave? Oh, hey Appaman, can you just ult this team fight just so they have to walk off away from us? And this is how the team's doing it. They're just doing 4-1 split. They're just going, hey, we're just J-ram this through the mid lane, try and find it, and if we can't, hey, Appaman's still on the side lane, and Appaman's at home doing this. He is just free farming these waves, and look, they're playing back and forth between these two waves, and Appaman's more than happy doing this, and Dasher, Tussle, and the rest of the Hawks are just looking to knock on the door. Ocean Drake is up, so they're probably looking for a pick. They'll probably get these Drakes, or they'll probably get these turrets, or a pick or two, and then we'll look to go back. Tussle's moving forward.
Yeah, AXIZ, when it push came to shove, they would not commit in to defend that mid tower. Of course, Gangplank is still away as Nemo tries to sneak out of the base, almost gives their life for it, just avoids getting ulted on the way out as well. But the Baron enhanced minions are opening the door for the Hawks here. They're chipping away ever so slowly at these towers. 100 stacks in for Zenit. As the Hawks, they're looking so incredibly strong. Their gold lead enormous.
They're just knocking on the door. Oh, here.
Looking for the flank, does manage to find it. There's a combo crowd control. But we see the shields come out immediately. The tower has fallen. In comes the Gangplank to provide support. A double kill. Drops him for Zenit. Nemo gives their life as Honey is left stumbling away. Hoglet is forced out of their own base. Zenit's going to chase them down and drive them away from their own inhibitor, which surely means that we're going to be seeing maybe 2 inhibitors going down. Hoglet does cut the wave to stop that bottom one from going, but it's only Honey in the base to stop the Hawks from pushing further.
They're going to keep pushing, and Zenit doesn't need to go back. He can just kill this if Hogla isn't careful.
The minions are running out. I think this has been a desperation defense as Corporal is taking the wild ride down to the bottom lane, or rather instead to the Drake pit. Hogla escapes, but the inhibitor will fall.
And that's just more pressure being put on the side of AXIZ. 11k gold lead still for the Hawks here. They're getting the dragon, and let's come into this replay and try and understand how it felt so bad for them. And it was because partly here, Inno steps forward, they try and find something, they get the Mega Gnar, but nobody gets stunned, and it mostly fell onto Corporal. Look at where Corporal is, he's in the middle of nowhere, but he's a Tom Kent, he loves this. The encore coming across 4 members of the team single-handedly wins this fight for the side of the Hawk. The fact that Corporal was the main point of action, and the fact that Dasher got a 4-man ultimate, it didn't matter what was happening afterwards. The fact that Apperman ulted, the fact that so much happened and Zenit was auto-attacking loads, this is all great, right? But you expect this. The fact that the AXIZ were like, yeah, let's just put all of our stuff into Corporal, and Dasher's just able to punish them hugely for that, really just trails how this game has gone for AXIZ, and it's a little disappointing to see that from them. However, where the praise is due is, let's be real, the Hawks got themselves into that spot, and it was glorious from them.
I mean, this is the problem that the Hawks ran into themselves before. It's getting drawn into fights when they just couldn't afford to take them. I want to take a moment out, though, to make special mention of Dasher for the Hawks. They've been such a rock for the squad, even when they've been losing games for the Hawks. Dasher has always been a consistent part of the squad, always performing extremely well. As AXIZ will make the catch onto Corporal themselves instantly. The cannon barrage comes out, and that means the play is turned. Nemo drops down. Megamin is almost dead as they escape from the fight. Inno is caught between a rock and a hard place and gets hit in the head with that rock. Megamin being chased through their own bases. Honey, the last line of defense, trying to keep the Emperor alive, but they cannot do so. Megamin takes what shelter they can under the turret. Apperman on the chase. I think Megamin survives, but as for the team of AXIZ, why, that might be an entirely different story. Chased onto the fountain, and it's the ace, a clean ace for the Hawks, as they make their case to make it to playoffs.
They really are trying to cement themselves as a playoff contender, and this game is one hell of a showing for them. Well played from all members of the Hawks here. You played this expertly, and you found any and all opportunities and prevented AXIZ from ever having a chance here. GG, well played, Hawks.
Oh my gosh. So we just didn't know what to expect coming into this one, but we were saying before, the Hawks, they played like a completely different team. It seems like all these times they've been getting run over in the early going. Maybe they've watched back those replays. Maybe they've seen those games and say, we've learned from the best, the teams that were beating us up. Now we're going to employ their style and get stomping wins.
We will have to go back to the analyst desk and figure this out and think to ourselves with deep ponder of, things that make you go, did Sengoku figure this? Did the Hawks figure this out and watch over their tapes and lost this to Sengoku? Or have AXIZ done something else? We'll find out after this break, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the final desk of the LJLOU Week 6 coverage of the LJL Super Week. Moss1 still here, and I'm joined by, this side, Counterfeit, as sometimes always, actually, depending on the broadcast that we're happen to be on. Counterfeit, what a glass game to end it on. It was a bit of a weird one to end it on, but at least they showed some hope from the Hawks in coming into this game.
Yeah, I mean, we were all betting against the Hawks coming into this game. I mean, we had every reason to think that the Hawks were going to get not necessarily stomped by AXIZ, but we had nothing to indicate to us that the Hawks had this within their capacity to do. I'm amazed that this is the time we're going to be seeing it happening just before the season ends. But hey, if you're going to hold something back, now's the time to be unleashing it.
I mean, I would have argued that maybe 2 weeks ago was probably the time to unleash it. But yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Hey, if you're going to start doing it now, at least leave yourself with an opportunity to make playoffs. And the Hawks might still have that opportunity as multiple standings, when we'll get into a little bit later, we'll be covering. This match specifically felt really confident from the side of the Hawks. Not a lot happened for the first 10-ish minutes, but when it got going, it really did. And obviously those 4 kills that happened at the 11 minute mark for AXIZ, the side of the Hawks getting 4 kills, that just really kind of started to set the stage of how this game was going to go.
Yes, cause I knew you got it wrong with the 4 kills for AXIZ because they didn't even get 4 kills in the whole game, let alone at 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, oh my gosh, yeah. We were looking for that 15-minute mark to be the big turning point, but the Hawks got ahead of the curve there by getting these plays through so quickly. I know. I think for me the biggest thing that really sort of stood out for me was the mid and top lane. Mostly in that they were kind of invisible from the AXIZ side.
Yeah.
We didn't see nearly anything from the Tazir. We barely even saw the Gnar all game long.
Yeah, Inno just had a very quiet game, wasn't able to capitalize on top of Apperman, and then never really left the lane either. We didn't see much TP action from him, which is obviously a complete opposite from what we saw from Kunatu, the previous game, who was playing Gnar on the Rascal Jesters, who was like, yeah, I'm just going to TP down and I don't mind. I'm just going to play really aggressive into my enemy. We didn't see that, and Apperman was able to quietly scale into this game. And absolutely, Megamin throughout all of this game, yeah, he was able to land 1 or 2 nice streamer shuffles, but he was also part of that first 4 deaths where he just randomly went at 3 members of the team of the Hawks, and it's like, or 4 members actually, and it's like, what are we accomplishing here? And I almost wonder the question, were the AXIZ players actually asking that question to themselves of, what are you accomplishing with this play? Because it sometimes felt like they were throwing Hail Mary to the wind and just going, oh, let's just see what works.
Well, one of the things that sticks out, certainly from the early game,
Hmm.
was it felt like AXIZ were really, really objective focused in this game. You know,
Yes.
the 4 people on the Drake, they go 4 people right up to the Rift Herald, bringing their bottom lane with them, which I don't think I've rarely seen that ever happen from a team. Evidently, they were expecting a lot of resistance there. So I like that they, even if it was kind of questionable how they implemented their strategy, they did have a strategy coming in, which was lock down every single one of the objectives.
Yeah. And then if we move on a little bit throughout the game, Apperman then got 3 kills at the 15-minute mark or the 12-minute mark or something like that. And then what can Inno do at that point when the enemy top laner just teleported down and was able to get... No, actually, no. That was AXIZ actually engaging onto Apperman and then them doing the crazy turnaround. Multiple members die in the top lane. Inno was one of those that perished. It was when Megamin came up with Hogler as well. Triple kill over onto Apperman. And by that point, Inno can't do anything. He was in a comfortable lane. He wasn't winning, but wasn't losing. But after those 3 kills went over onto Apperman, he was able to get a very early Essence Reaver. And at that point, it was pretty much everything was going Hawks' favor. Tussle obviously was playing a very important role around this game and was controlling a lot of the tempo, I would argue.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when those impales came through, I think, as a team, I felt like the Hawks were very hard to play into here for AXIZ. It didn't seem like, AXIZ knew how to, firstly to deal with the impales. I don't think we saw by the end of the game any Quicksilvers on the team at all. They didn't know how to deal with the team fights where you have, we've got the Tam Kench and the Gangplank, both top and bottom lane, can come and enter into any given fight at any given time, meaning you can't make picks. I just really felt like beyond the early game, AXIZ just didn't know how to deal with what the Hawks were bringing out at all.
Yeah, and I think we saw that perfectly when Megumin did get that one pick onto Dasher, who was playing that Seraphine, and it felt like, okay, maybe there's an opportunity here. Honey's trap sadly missing Dasher on the come down, so it was like, well, I guess Dasher might be able to get away. But then obviously Protect the President started, Corporal coming in with Zenit, and Corporal just going, no, you're not going to eat him. I'm going to spit him out away from you. And then the Encore came across everyone. And then AXIZ died again, like 4 members, and it was kind of hard to watch at some points, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's again a special mention to go out to Dash's Encores. They were crisp as hell. Even when they were the one being the play made onto, they held the Encore until they could slice it across the entire opposing team, saying, even if I'm going to die here, I'm going to make sure that the rest of the Hawks, when they come in, they are going to destroy this team fight. And AXIZ, you're going to regret catching me.
I think the best point is if we zoom on towards the end of the game, the Hawks have just secured the Baron with 0 contention really being allowed to come out from the Hawks. They didn't even really come and fight them. They were just like, yeah, no, you guys take that. That's fine. We see the Hawks going into this mid lane. And then Corporal... they're starting to knock down the tower. AXIZ are trying to fight them in some angle, and then everything gets used on Corporal, who's on this Tahm Kench. He gets Shurima shuffled into the middle. The box comes out. Everything's going on, and then you're like, guys, this is Corporal. He's a Tahm Kench. He literally has a button that says, I want a shield, please, for all the damage that has just been dealt out to me. And then Dasher goes, hey, what about an encore between 4 people? And the fight was over. And it was really effective. You could just see the members of the Hawks were very coordinated.
I mean, as much as the Hawks feel like they've learned from the previous teams that have handed out beatings to them in record time, it felt like to an extent, AXIZ learned from Hawks in the previous game when they committed all of their resources onto a non-essential member to try and get the kill. And in a similar kind of situation as before, even if you do kill that Tahm Kench, what have you got out of the situation apart from a whole bunch of blown ultimates and no ability to kill anybody else?
You have nothing, and if you can't kill a Tahm Kench, that is obviously getting fed items and everything, and you can never get on his squishies, the game normally is over. And that's kind of how it ended up running. And with that was our final post-game breakdown. Counterfeit, that has been 16 games I've been a part of for post-game breakdowns. It's been a very long weekend. And Patrick, if I may have the standings come up to finally run us down, Counterfeit, how all of these games have gone down. AXIZ and the SoftBank Hawks are currently tied in... AXIZ, the SoftBank Hawks and Burning Core are all tied in 6th place at the moment, all with 3 wins and 9 losses. We've got Crest Gaming Act currently sitting in 5th place, rather comfortably to lead advantage over multiple teams currently sitting in 6th place. So they are in a pretty good spot to secure playoff spot. Sengoku Gaming is mostly standing pretty. Oh, no. Oh, I buggered it. I didn't do it fast enough. I'm sorry.
You must be punished.
I got punished. I wasn't quick enough. Oh, my bad. Anyway, and obviously Sengoku Gaming sitting with 7 wins and 5 losses at the moment. They should, in theory, be a lock. We just don't know whereabouts in the standings they will be. Obviously, seeding is very important because you do get side selection. Our top 3 teams are V3 Esports with 8 wins and 4 losses. Rascal Jester with 9 wins and 3 losses. And at the very top of the standings, even with their loss in Super Week, Detonation Focus Me still leading the pack with 10 wins and 2 losses. Important thing to note, though, obviously, that Detonation Focus Me went 1-1 against Sengoku Gaming, and last week for us to cover is going to be a very spicy one. I believe match of the week is probably going to be Detonation Focus Me facing off against V3 Esports, or it's going to be deciding of the next 2 of 3rd and 4th place, and that'll be Rascal, well, 2nd and 4th place. That's going to be Sengoku Gaming facing off against Rascal Jester. So ladies and gentlemen, we've got some very exciting games to come next week. We will, of course, be going live at 9 a.m., doing our standard practice of 4 games on Saturday, 4 games on Sunday. We're returning to our normal schedule, and then we will be announcing our playoffs. These are the matches coming up, and obviously the big ones to look at here are going to be Dead Nation Focus Me V3 Sports and Rascal Jester facing off against Sengoku Gaming Counterfeit. As you're here with me, what game are you most excited for next week?
I think I'm all here to see more surprises against Destination Focus Me for sure. I love to see
Sure.
V3 manage to make it through there and just humble
Mm.
Death Nation a little bit before playoffs start. Because I think they're a team who needs a little bit more humbling. They get through so well to start off things. You don't want to get through the whole of the the regular season without taking losses. You need to be seasoned as a team, and you'd have that happen by making sure you're shown that never, even gods can bleed.
Well, that could definitely be an exciting one, and there is a chance that we could have multiple teams on the same record, so tiebreakers would be very important because, as I already mentioned, seeding and obviously the upper bracket for the gauntlet match, which we'll explain in far more detail over on the podcast, as well as we'll explain in the end of week 7 how it will all be working. But with that all said, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be the full coverage of the LJLOU Super Week coverage. I want to get some thank yous out first and foremost before we do end this broadcast. I want to give a thank you to all the guest casters that come on. So that includes yourself here, Counterfeit, along with Greyheart and Kachka. I always look at his name and think it's something different. I'm like, no, these are what these words mean. Just do it, Alex. Your dyslexic brain doesn't matter. I want to thank, of course, over to our 2 producers that have stepped in for this week to help us out over at the LJLU. That's going to be Reed and Patrick. Thank you so much to you both. You have relieved a lot of stress from this Super Week, which can be a lot of games to cover in a short thing. I want to thank over some members of our Discord which have helped with our interview coverage. That's going to be Star, Sapphire, and Seju Poro. Thank you so much for both of you for giving some translations out to there. Obviously, thank you over to Nightmare and Initialize for helping out when it needing the coverage. And as always, just being good people to rely on when I need them. And last but certainly not least, any and all of the viewers out there that have tuned into the production. It's been a wild week, but we've got still more games of action for the LJLOU. So don't go anywhere. Come back in a week. We'll have more games for you. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a lovely rest of your day.